Let's talk about UX versus UI. So this is something that I think lots of people get confused on, especially if they're not in the UX field. But even if they're starting out in the UX field, UX versus UI, totally two different things, and people have a little bit of trouble understanding them. So in order to help you maybe remember what the difference is, I'm going to use a metaphor. So when you go and you buy a car, the user experience is all of the components of buying the car and actually driving the car and owning the car. It's everything. It's the entire experience. It's how the cushion feels when you sit down. It's how the person selling it to you treats you. It's how well it works once you've purchased it. It's how the services of maintaining it. It's every single touch point throughout the entire experience of you ever owning that car that creates the user experience. And this goes into branding as well. So it could be, maybe the way that you and your friends view the brand actually enhances your user experience, because when you drive up in this nice new car and people get really excited about it, that actually enhances your user experience. So it's all of these things. UI is the actual interface, right? So it's the steering wheel, it's the touchscreen dashboard, it's the clutch if you drive manual. It's all of the things that you're actually interacting with as a user. It's the user interface. So for websites, that's like the buttons that you're clicking on, or the actual what you see on the screen is the UI, or the user interface. That doesn't necessarily mean that the user interface doesn't affect the UX, because it does. If that steering wheel didn't feel good in your hands and it didn't make you feel the way that you want to feel, maybe the way that you want to feel is powerful and rich and like you're driving a luxury car. If that steering wheel doesn't go into the way that the UX is meant to work for you, then it's actually taking away from the UX. So that's why this becomes a really complicated thing, right? Because the UI does affect the UX, but UI is not UX. UX is not UI. They're two separate things. The UX is the way that you feel when you drive this car. The UI is the actual interface that you're interacting with as you drive the car. So it's really similar, and they're getting really close up on each other, but they're two different things. So if you're a website, what's actually showing up and what you see visually is the user interface. Same goes with an application if you're designing a mobile app or maybe a web app. But how people feel and their emotional response and the psychology behind all of the little details that you've put into the UI, that's what creates the UX. The way that your customer service representatives treat them adds to the UX. The way that they interact with your product at any touch point adds to the UX. So it's all of those things. It's one big giant, kind of bucket of all of these things. It's also, it comes down to a lot of business things too, right? So if this car is the most amazing car that you've ever driven and you're so excited, but then the price is like way beyond anything that you are making or are ever going to make, that creates for a bad UX, because then you feel bad that you can't afford it. So you have to look at everything holistically. UX is holistic business. UX is talking to your users to find out what they want so that you can make it for them. Is this steering wheel, this user interface, the one that they want? Yes or no? And you have to do that with every little thing throughout the entirety of your business. If you miss a place, then just ask your users. Like, we've, looked at the steering wheel, and we've looked at the price point, and we've looked at, all these other things within the business to give you this car, but what's missing? And for them, it might be that the car isn't sold in the color blue. And so you just add it. Simple as that.